So tonight is all about navigating high sense perception in a chaotic world. And I send out a blog post on this today. So some of you received that and may have already read it. So I'm just going to go over the basics of that. And then Celeste, who is not yet with us tonight, shared the difference between empaths and high sense perception. And there's some very significant difference there. And it's really, really important to know the difference. So let's talk about living as a highly sensitive person in a world of increasing violence, chaos, and greed, because it is challenging, folks. I am a high sense perception person, so I'm what they call highly sensitive. And what that means is that I take in a lot of information from all around me, so that it's like I have an on button, and it's on. I don't have an off button, I have an on button. And so the problem with that is that I have this amplified ability to process that information. And so it's sensory, so feeling, etc., and emotional stimuli. And there's a lot of subtle energies all around us. And there's a part of the brain that processes this. So this is a trait. It's not a diagnosis. It's nothing bad, but it is a trait that people can have. And one of the reasons it's really, really important for us to know this is you may be a high sense perception person. Chances are you are. If you're on this Tuesday night call, chances are you are. And also, you may have children or family members or know someone who has this trait. And a lot of children have different kinds of behaviors that start to come out because of this. So key traits of highly sensitive people. A, they are deep processors. So what that would look like, for example, in school, when a teacher sees a child who's kind of standing back and just observing, they may not be shy, they may not be timid, they may just be processing and analyzing all the information, and they don't analyze necessarily in a linear path, okay? But they are somehow making connections and seeing patterns, so they may be in deep processing mode. Now, high sense people can have anxiety and timidity, etc., but high sense people are really, there's something in them that senses all these things, and they're trying to very deeply process and make sense of the world. Another trait is that people with high sense perception are easily overstimulated. So crowded, chaotic, noisy environments can just flatten a person. And for example, my husband and I, was it last year? I think it was last year, went to a Christmas parade here in Boquete. It's a tiny mountain town, but if you're ever here in Latin America, the sound is just, it's like one blaring speaker right next to the other, which is setting all the car alarms off. And it's at the most deafening decibel that you can imagine. So you've got this music mixing with this music with the car alarms, and we got stuck on the sidewalk because of the crowd, backed up against a wall, and we could not move.
Oh my
I
God.
literally was tearing off pieces of paper and stuffing them in my ears to bring down the sound and the assault on my nervous system. The assault was bad enough because I could feel the music, I could feel the people around me, etc. And eventually we were able to make our way out of there, and I will never go back to that Christmas parade. But I can say I've had the experience now. So easily overstimulated. People with high sense perception, the third trait is they are highly emotionally responsive. This means they feel their emotions intensely, both their own and other people's. Okay? So imagine what it's like for a younger person who has either positive or negative experiences, and they feel it very emotionally intensely. this is overstimulation. So they don't know what to do with that. So behaviors start to come out. And this happens in adults too, folks. So adults just have more time to be adaptive in their response, like overwork or pressing and pushing and things like that. Or they may do some other things that are not such great adaptive things, like drugs and alcohol to dull down the sensation. Kids, on the other hand, they may get angry, they may throw things, they may have tantrums, they may, depending on their age, they may get into fights, they may just totally shut down and go away. So there are all sorts of methodologies, and there are ways, by the way, to work with both adults and children that have high sense perception. The fourth is heightened sensory awareness. So even very small shifts in energy, tone, expression immediately register. Now remember, these are deep processors, so they may not be processed immediately, but they register in the person's nervous system. Okay? So, for example, when I'm here in the house, long before my father, my husband, or anybody else can sense it, I'm feeling something. I don't know what it is, but I'm feeling it. It might be a snake that suddenly showed up somewhere. It might be a person coming up. I cannot tell you how many times that happens. Or I have an attunement for sound as well, and I can hear, just like if you're in the car, the slightest thing that jiggles in the car drives me crazy. It literally, I mean, my whole nervous system starts to go like this. My poor dad, he likes to play with his napkin. And there's this sound. To me, it's like fingernails on a chalkboard. The assault on my senses is so intense. And I'm like, please stop. So I'm trying to find him softer napkins that don't make any sound. Do any of you recognize yourself in this? Yeah. And high sense perceptions varies in degrees. So some of us are like way out there on that scale and in particular areas, and others are just up and down in different areas. The problem with all of this is that it can leave us feeling off balance, anxious, and questioning our sanity, literally. And so, what's wrong with me? And the cool thing is, nothing's wrong. Difficult, yes. Challenging, yes. But wrong, no. So here's another interesting thing. Some HSPs also experience something called synesthesia. Synesthesia is a neurological processing, a type of neurological processing where our senses blend together. So for example, if I hear a sound, it might come in as a color. Or if I have a smell, I might hear a sound at the same time with specific smell. So our senses start to blend. It's a way of processing.
Tammy, how did you tie this in? I've just been reading about it. There's a woman who was a piano player that sees colors when she plays the piano, and I wasn't aware of this phenomenon, so I looked it up. There's 80 different types of synesthesia. It's similar to frisson when you feel chills that are from music or poetry or nature. So how is it?
It's defined in current literature as a way of neurologically processing. And of course, we all have neural processing with everything. In my experience, many intuitives are synesthetes. Many people that work with energy are synesthetes and high sense perception. Not all high sense perception people have that synesthesia where they crosswalk. I'm going to call it crosswalking your senses. Okay. The really cool thing about high sense perception is that there are a lot of artists and there are scientists, many explorers that have high sense perception, and they bring new ideas, new creativity to life. So many of the people that have made some major discoveries in our world were synesthetes, not synesthetes, high sense perception people. And so the creativity that comes with that and the different way of looking at the world, because you have more stimuli, more things to process, and that processing builds. It builds on past experience as well. So it all kind of starts to blend and new patterns emerge, new expanded perceptions of reality, which is really cool. And it creates a multi-dimensional way of thinking when we're not conditioned out of it. That's a big thing. Oftentimes it gets diagnosed or conditioned out of us by our current collective community, if you will, in the world. So when nurtured in a supportive environment, though, high sense perception people thrive and they bring that forward. But environment plays a crucial role, okay? So there's this theory called differential susceptibility. So it just means a different level of susceptibility. Let's make it simple tonight. And HSPs are more affected by negative environments. So think of strong child abuse, bullying. Think about what's happening in the world right now, turmoil. This impacts highly sensitive people more than perhaps your average bear. Though I'd say it's pretty much affecting everybody right now. But this is their reality. And that can drive some maladaptive behaviors, also known as adaptive behaviors. We just call them maladaptive. But it's a way to deal with what you're experiencing. But it can leave them feeling deeply, deeply unsettled, okay? And they can absorb pain, the pain and turmoil around them. So I'm going to veer off now and talk about empaths. So the difference between someone with high sense perception, so they're highly sensitive, they're deeply processing all this information that they're getting, easily overstimulated, emotionally responsive, heightened sensory awareness. However, it's like water. Okay, high sense perception people are like water. Things impact it, so it moves and flows differently. A single drop can move the water. Empaths are more like sponges. They take all that information and they absorb it. So if you have both of those, you get a double whammy. Sorry. And there are different kinds of empaths. We won't go into the depths of that, but it's important you know the difference, because if you're dealing with someone who's both highly sensitive and an empath, it's helpful to know that, because oftentimes when I'm working with coaches, many coaches are very empathic. They absorb the feelings and pains and the good times of others as well, not just the negative, but they absorb that. And if they don't know how to release it or to create an energetic, I hate to say barrier, but in many ways it is a filter. It is a filter so you don't absorb what is not useful. And if they don't know how to do that, they can take a lot on, and it changes their life path deeply. I was working with somebody earlier this week who, very sad situation, where they're feeling responsible for a parent who is experiencing suicidal tendencies, and they have cared for this parent for most of their life. And this is a young adult. And the difficulty that I see is she has absorbed, and this is a generational thing. This is not a one generation, but it's generational. And she has absorbed that and is going down the same road as her parent. And so my work with her is to teach, the first thing is to teach her to have that filter, to begin to have that filter. So as you know, environments play a crucial role in shaping their experience. We talked about that. The negative environments can leave them fearful, hypervigilant, and absorbing the pain and turmoil. However, the really cool thing is that HSPs have a very rare gift. And it's the gift of being able to recognize patterns and process experiences uniquely that allows them to bring forward, with a little bit of time and practice, allows them to bring forward this really cool perspective and solutions. They can find solutions that nobody else can. They can see things, know things, experience things that other people can't. And this brings insight and transformation, and the world, in my opinion, really needs their gifts right now. We need to do things differently. So how cool is this rare gift? But even so, a lot of people with HSP struggle to bring their gifts to life. And part of that is a lack of understanding on what I call the creative intelligence agency. And all of you have some agency, or you wouldn't be here, or you wouldn't be at this stage in your life. So creative intelligence agency really is about the CIA, not the clandestine agency, okay? It is about having clarity, and clarity in what you are committing to. Clear commitments, and we want to make sure those commitments are aligned with your deepest desires, your heartfelt desires, your soulful desires, okay? We also want what I call the intelligence. So this is intelligent integrity. Integrity is about wholeness. It's not I'm not talking about moral integrity. I'm talking about wholeness. How do I align with my deepest desires, particularly when the world around me is going to, excuse my language, to hell in a handbasket? How do I keep aligning? How do I keep coming back and have faith in that, in the face of any situation or circumstance? And there's some tough stuff out there right now. So that's called intelligent integrity. And the last part is actionable accountability. So we take actions, but are they in alignment with our deepest desires? Are we making commitments to our deepest desires? Are we letting the world out there run us? Are our commitments more about what's out there than what's in here? It's very easy for HSPs to commit to other people. Empaths and HSPs often commit and take care of other people rather than themselves. You had a question, Mark, or comment?
Action what? I just missed the term.
Accountable action.
Accountable, thank you.
Whether you're accountable to yourself or you work with another group of people. For HSPs, it's a lot easier to work in a group because that's where they find the support to move forward. So all life, as we know, unfolds in relationship. And that companionship of people who have a similar path, similar in that while they may be delivering different gifts, they are experiencing some of the same challenges. And when you have the companionship of people who are also bringing forward their gifts, and you are committed to helping each other do that, it makes a huge difference. So that's what I want to say about HSPs. And before, I've got some questions to ask you that I think can be helpful. But before I go there, any questions or comments? And because not everybody knows each other, when you come on, if you'd say your name and where you're zooming in from. Any additions? How many HSPs do we have here? 1, 2, self-identified, 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 or 7. Okay.
I'm Pat from California. As you were talking, I was not especially thinking about myself, but my granddaughter. She's a HSP in spades. And this is going to help me with her. I have been I'm really in her life right now.
Awesome.
And so this is good because she has been so anxious, she couldn't even go to high school. She couldn't go to school. She had to do independent study to
Mhm.
graduate. And she just is she's 23. She's just in her room and won't go out of her room. And so I'm helping her expand a little bit. But thank you. This is, I'm just really, really thinking about her.
Well, let me give you a resource, Pat. Elaine Aron is a researcher in psychology, and she has a lot of books on Amazon, but she has The Highly Sensitive Person, and she has also, I think it's The Highly Sensitive Child, which is another good one. And in it, she talks, and there's a movie, I think it's on Amazon Prime as well. And she talks about how to walk with highly sensitive individuals. And if you are one, how you also take care of yourself as a parent if you're an HSP. Because often parents that are highly sensitive have highly sensitive children. So imagine overwhelm meets overwhelm. You know,
And
it's
what was her name again?
what did I just say? Elaine Aron, I think is the last name. Let me just double check. Yes, Aron.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And she's done some seminal work on this. There are a lot of other sites, but I think she's got it down
Thank you.
and has done her research. So I recommend that. What other questions or comments so far? What are you noticing within yourself related to this? Mardell, you're waving. Take yourself off mute. There you go.
I actually have a question. I know a lady who's an empath, and it's to the point where she's almost totally dysfunctional. And would like the books like The Highly Sensitive Person help her, or are there books that would be geared more to an empathic person that could be recommended?
I think for an empath, Judith Orloff has a website called the Empath Survival Guide. So for those people that are sponges, that might be a better website than just highly sensitive.
Okay. WARLOFF.
ORLOFF, Judith Orloff.
Oh, say again,
LOORLOFF.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, good. Maybe it'll help her.
I think that's and again, you can have the trait of high sense perception and not be an empath, or you can have both. So it's hard to be an empath without having high sense perception, though. It's just you take it the extra degree and absorb it all. And you can imagine what that does to your physicality and your whole being, your emotional well-being, your mental well-being. In fact, I've seen in instances of mental illness, I've seen many people recover from a diagnosed mental illness once the sensory stimuli was calmed down without drugs. I'm not anti-drug, please hear me out, but without that. And also, once the person also learned how to put up this kind of screen and to know the difference between when they're absorbing something and when they were just witnessing it. So when you match something, you are starting to absorb. Okay. Now, skilled therapists, skilled coaches, and others can match an emotion without absorbing it. but you have to know how. You do not want to absorb somebody else's energy. I like to say people have to stay 4 feet out of my, 4 feet off my body. That's the external limit of my energy field. So their energy cannot come in unless there's a reason for it. I can feel them anyway. I mean, I will often feel before I ever meet a client, I will often start to get impressions, etc. And this is a little bit off topic, but consciousness knows no boundaries. Consciousness is just the flow of energy. It's sensory information. It's cognitive, but it's also sensory. So when you have consciousness, it can flow from here to there. And it doesn't matter whether you're in South America or China or wherever, that information starts to flow. People call that intuition, but it's really very basic, folks. We're built to receive information. We're just built that way. And we're built to project information.
And I bet you can sense the energy of all of us.
Well, yeah.
Of each person.
So can you. Even if you don't feel you can right now, you can train yourself to do it. Because you cannot not be intuitive. You are everybody's intuitive because you are built as a receiver of information and a purveyor of information. It's always happening. It's always exchanging. It's whether you're conscious of it or not, whether you're awake with it or not. That's really, really important.
Tammy, do you find it, with so many people after this session is over, do you feel drained or tired, or do you have the skills to protect yourself from, the bombardment of energy or whatever?
I choose not to absorb it. When I was younger, I would absorb a lot of things because I was both high sense and empathic, and I choose not to absorb it anymore. I've learned how to not do that. The one thing that will overwhelm me still is if I pack too many things in one day. Like if I have meeting after meeting after meeting and I don't have enough transition time and something happens, then I can feel my energy start to go. And so there's the constant, where am I going? How am I get there? What am I going to do? And keeping all that in balance. So I start to what I call wind up. And that's when the breathing exercise, breath in, twice as long out, really helps calm my energy. For example, today I had an amazing amount on my schedule. I was able to manage it though with the breath, and I knew it ahead of time. So I kind of had my sense. I also had a Tai Chi class in the middle of it, which always helps because that's a very calming, breathing presence. So all of that helps as well. So no, you guys are not overwhelming. Not at all.
Good.
So what else? What other questions?
Just a comment. Depending on the level of some of these traits an individual has, and especially when they're growing up, thinking of Patricia and her family member, and remembering my own experiences in grade school. It is learning coping mechanisms, and if you don't actually know what's going on, because I didn't, as far as compare, you have nothing to compare it to. Whoever talks to you about this, I would at times look around to see how are other people affected by this, that, or the other. And I'm not sure exactly what level of high sense perception I have versus somebody else, but you are feeling, or I do feel the impact at times. But then it is, yes, learning coping mechanisms so that it doesn't impact you as much and cause stress in particular.
It's a very, very important thing to be aware of, and particularly in school environments, it's really important. And yet this is still pretty unknown in a lot of places. But a highly sensitive person, you can shut them down in a heartbeat or send them down what I call the rabbit hole, unfortunately. So knowing this, particularly if you are in any situation where you are impacting others, whether you're a coach or a therapist or a healer, whatever line of work you're in, knowing that this exists is really important to have in the back of your, in your toolkit. Because then you can start to work with people. And one of the most important things is to validate people's feelings, is to validate what they are feeling, what they are sensing and perceiving. Now, their interpretation may not be accurate. I've learned over time that I can sense something and I pay attention. I may not know what it is until it literally shows its head. But I'll tell you what, I can walk out in the garage and I'll feel something and I'm like, okay, pay attention. And there comes a coral snake or there comes something else. It's like, okay, glad I paid attention because I was paying attention to where I'm putting my feet. And those are important things. Our gardener has high sense perception. He can feel a scorpion from a mile away. He can feel when the monkeys are coming or when certain birds are coming. My father's high sense perception. And you have these really cool things you can do with high sense perception because you have that ability, not just to receive, but you also can generate the energy. You can connect and communicate, not in English, not in Spanish, not in French, but you can connect at a very conscious level with animals, creatures. It's really, really cool. We do it here all the time with the birds here, with the falcon. Falcons in to the bird feeder. And it's all through presence. It's through consciousness. It takes practice, folks. I'm not going to tell you that you're going out tonight and doing it, but you can do it with your cats. You can do it with your pets. Our little wild Panamanian dog that adopted us, he can read my energy like nobody's business. I mean, all I have to do is look at him and project an image of the food he's going to get, and he's off to his dish. I don't have to say anything. I don't have to move my body, change my tone, do anything. I just simply stop. And I practice this with him just to see, am I making this up? Is this working? And it's quite fun, actually. So try it. Try it with your own creatures. And animals, by the way, they don't speak English as much as they do. They can learn some words and learn what you mean, but they sense your energy, images and sensations. They speak sensory languages. So if you put an image in your mind and a sensation, oh, what yummy cat food. Sorry, I don't know how you're going to get that sensation of, oh, what yummy cat food unless you've tried it. But you can put that in an image and just begin to see what happens. Practice it over and over and over. And your cat will begin to pick up on that. Or your dog.
One of my cats is deaf.
Mm-hmm.
And I speak to her in images.
Beautiful. And you can do that with wild creatures too. Wild creatures actually have a much higher sense perception than many domesticated animals because they have to have it in order to survive. They have to know what's coming to get them, what's coming to eat them. So what other questions do you have tonight? Or comments?
I have a question.
Sure.
So as you're talking about the traits for a highly sensitive, I think of my daughter, my youngest daughter, she's 23 now. But yet she reminds me so much of my mother that she didn't really spend any time with. They've both been diagnosed as it's your anxiety. So just take medication for your anxiety and you'll be okay. And labeled as, extreme introverts. I see some of that in me, but I've watched my daughter especially struggle through when with all of this, and she's changed over time because she's had to in society, and she's a teacher now. She's in her 3rd year, but still struggles with this. And I never realized what was going on. I used to ask her, can you tell me what you're thinking? Like, what's going on in what are you feeling? And she would just shut down.
Mm-hmm.
So how often are people misdiagnosed or autism or anxiety, and you just need to deal with it? What does she do? And she's going to counseling, which helps her. But it is a real struggle because I don't think she understands what it is.
So let's take these one at a time. How often are people misdiagnosed? I haven't a clue. You have to do some pretty deep research and very serious research to know how often maybe people are misdiagnosed. And you would also have to have willing subjects that can be measured neurologically to actually get real data on that. And remember, you can have concurring experiences. You can have a high sense perception person who has anxiety, etc. So it's not black and white. What I think might be an interesting path is to share some of the work with that Elaine does, and maybe her website, or share the movie that's on Amazon Prime. Highly Sensitive People, I think, is the name of it. And let her see if it matches with her experience, because the movie is done in a way that can be easily taken in by high sense people. And the website has lots of great information on it as well. So that, rather than, remember, people are easily overstimulated with high sense perception. So rather than talking a lot about it, she gets to take it in at her own pace. I saw this. I thought it could be helpful.
Okay.
And when she's ready, she could take it in. You don't want to push.
Suggestions on, like, I don't know, what to do, how to deal with it,
They
or
have
just being
whole
aware.
books on that.
Okay.
Whole books. And one of the difficulties is going to be that once you have an adaptive pattern, once you have created a pattern for dealing with overstimulation, loud noises, etc., too much information, too many crowds, you may be kind of hanging on to that for a while. That's where therapy can come in very helpful. But it has to start with a knowledge, is this what's occurring? Am I indeed somebody who is just so highly sensitive that these things are really impacting me? Because once she knows that, if that is indeed the case, then she can look at her environments and say, oh. And the really cool thing is people feel such shame, and we know that shame is something's wrong with me, because they're trying to have an environment that's not overstimulating. Something's broken. Why am I like this? All my friends are going out. All my classmates and schoolmates have made a life, and I'm just trying to protect myself. It may be that people with high sense perceptions need a different environment to thrive.
She sleeps a lot. I always
So
think
that's a way of
the
shutting
only
down.
time her mind can shut down.
Mm-hmm. And there are lots of co-concurring things that can happen for people. If you have been overstimulated, if you are a high sense perception person and you have been overstimulated all your life so that your nervous system is now jangling and your brain is just trying to deal with it. So your brain is revving, then you might need something to calm it down a bit so that you can get to the bottom. You just want to make sure it's the thing that works for you. Not all therapists are made the same. Not all medicines are made the same. So we need to find the right fit for that. Does that make sense to you? Or if it doesn't, leave it all.
No, it does. No, thanks. I'll share
Mhm.
that with her.
And the really important thing is that there's a path forward, you know, and it may be a multimodal path. It may not be a one size fits all. I like a lot of holistic things, but I like to tell people often say, well, this is natural. And I say, so's rattlesnake venom. That doesn't mean I'm going to drink it, you know. So just because something's natural doesn't mean it's a good thing. Just because something's holistic, you know, do your research, let her do it. You know, you can offer a platter, but let people choose, particularly if they've been, I like to call it pounded on by doctors and society and etc. If they have been easily overstimulated and have that heightened sensory awareness, then that's just going to be our thing that they can't deal with right now. But a little bit goes a long ways, particularly in this area. So I highly recommend the movie just because you don't have to figure anything out. It's just very, what the Spanish call suave. So it's very easy, very soft and fluid, even the music and the images. So it's just nice and easy, not overstimulating. The movie's name, hang on. Highly Sensitive People, it's on Amazon. Let me see if I get the very correct name to that. I'll pull it up right now, provided the internet allows me to.
I can also help look it up if you want me to look it up on this end.
This is
It is Sensitive, the Untold Story. That's what it
Oh,
is.
sensitive.
the untold story.
Correct.
This
First
is
word,
so
sensitive.
amazing because I'm seeing having lunch with my daughter or granddaughter on Friday.
Awesome.
So
Awesome. Thank you, Jenny. Thank you for the question too. Jenny, do you want to add or does anybody want to add anything to this conversation? This is not, I know, let's see, Jenny and then Mardell.
I'll keep it short, or I could talk for 12 days about this, so I'll keep it short. I think I'm having a deep insight. I think I'm an empath and my kids are highly sensitive people, so we don't know how to connect. I'm curious what you were saying about, I'm sorry, I've been in and out. It's just, it's a driving time from an appointment for one of my highly sensitive children that need support. I'm curious what you said about being able to take down a highly sensitive person really quickly, because as a sponge, but I think I also have some of that. I'm going to go study this. I think as an empath and a sponge and someone who's resilient, I tend to probably be going at this the wrong way with my kids, which is like treating them very softly and gently to a point where I'm like, now it's time to gut up. And they just aren't gutting up. There's something about how I'm working with them. And of course, society's all around them, pushing them. And I could go into details, about when it works and when it doesn't. But yeah, that would be interesting to know. What is it that's the tipping point for highly sensitive people, especially for those of us that are coaching? What would be the things to look out for? And I had a third question, but it's gone.
Well, let's start with
Fascinating.
the sponge and the water analogy. Okay, so highly sensitive people are the water and the empaths are the sponge, right? Well, what happens with a sponge when you put it in water? It soaks up all the water, right? It goes. And a highly sensitive person feels that. Okay. So the highly sensitive person does not want to feel like all their energy is being sucked up. They resent that. So the trick for a parent who is an empath is you have to find a way to set up a filter. Do not match their energy. Do not take it on, and don't do the whole guilt thing. Okay? So you don't take it on, you don't suck it up, you don't match the energy. I will tell you, as a highly sensitive person with an empath parent, the thing that triggers me most is that sucking up of my energy. It's like, ah. And I've had to learn to very gently put some boundaries in.
Can you give
So-
an example of a way that an empath would suck up a highly sensitive person's energy? Because I don't think that's being done consciously. I think that's
Oh
just the
no,
energy
no,
dynamic.
it's
This is
often not done consciously. Over concern, over
Uh-oh.
over. That's the word. Over concern, over worry, over, you
Okay.
know, over involved.
So like an empath is sucking up, it's like absorbing. I like this metaphor, so this might be helpful for all of us. So the empath is sucking up all the energy, and then we move into kind of like, I would feel like it's sort of like, well, let's go fix and,
Right.
help those around you because you're feeling it so strongly. You feel
Right.
like you need to step in and make some adjustments when they really just probably want to withdraw. And then we're experienced as over all the things, and then we're an empath. Is it's like you don't know how to, it's very clear that I don't know what they need. And if I ask, that's more of the over.
So
I'm supposed to know. This is very good.
let me take on a high sense perception role with the empath parent and say, okay, my response when that energy comes at me trying to suck it up and fix it is that I will often, these days, not before, but these days, my response is, right now, I just need some space to do my thing. So that tells the empath, back off. Now it gets a little more fun when you're a parent of younger children. They do need boundaries. And communicating those boundaries ahead of time so that a highly sensitive person knows it's coming. It's not going to always work. You know that this is not perfection, Jenny. But the trick for the empath is to manage how much you're taking and matching. Because if you can put that screen up, not match the energy, but create your own, then the sponge becomes much less sponge-like. And it's kind of like the spongy sucking up energy where the sponge takes in, starts to dissipate a bit. It gives the empath some room to maneuver. So as an empath, it will give you room to navigate very clear, not with heightened sensory feelings that you're kind of putting out into the world that your highly sensitive children will pick up on. Does this make sense?
So crystal clear.
Okay. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Does that also, when we have one follow-up question, if you're in a relationship with someone and you're an empath and you begin to feel like you're soaking up all their energy, any advice like in a romantic relationship or a friend relationship where you need to do the same thing, but it feels a little different?
It
than
is a little
child?
different, but it's because the parental role is different than
Like if you really
partner
enjoy
role.
someone, but if they have a piece of them that creates that feeling of sort of the sponge, right? And you
Mhm.
can't help but feel like, let's say they have a a traumatic past, or they have a challenge in their life, or they're not evolving in a certain way. And it's like you can't help but feel it, but you want to
Mhm.
be in a relationship with the person, but you don't want to overwhelm. That's an interesting spot.
The word
Especially
I
if they're
use
highly
from
sensitive.
the word I use is respect.
Uh-huh.
That we respect that people have the capacity, for the most part, or they can develop the capacity. If you hold that energy, that you
Mhm.
respect the power within people,
Mhm.
that they have the capacity or can develop the capacity to walk their life, to walk their emotions, to regulate their emotions, and to
Mhm.
walk life, that they have that capacity, you'd be amazed at what happens.
Yeah.
And this I see in a lot of couples, is that
Mhm.
dynamic, to the point where I was working with one lovely, lovely woman, but she was an empath, so much so that her anxiety went through the roof whenever her partner would have an experience where he needed some space. It just, she was reading the energy, and he needs space. She was sucking it all up. And
Mhm.
instead of just, okay.
Mhm.
And the part of the problem comes in the interpretation. It's the same problem that intuitives
Mhm.
have. You can do an intuitive reading, but the moment you say this is the way it is for somebody, you are inaccurate.
Right.
You can share your impressions. This is what I'm getting at this point in time. But if you project those onto the person, that's not okay.
I think it'd be fun. I'm going to stop so other people I know we're at time, but it'd be interesting to continue to talk about the experience of being the empathic sponge in the water, because that's really a profound thought. Because I think that often in my life, that I am sponging, not even consciously, but the experience of me is a certain way that can be irritating to others. And then also, if you're in a relationship where the tendency, you can't really control the sponge, as maybe we can, but there's an experience of like, how do we separate respect and do that consciously, so you can be in relationship with someone that might be, like you're saying, triggering. So this is a fascinating discussion. I don't think we're finished.
Well, we'll talk more about how to work with that. And it's
Mhm.
always about awareness. It's always about
Mhm.
alignment, the energy you're aligning to, and of
Mhm.
course, the actions that you're taking, which are either responsive or reactive.
Yeah.
So, but it's that first part of awareness that's really important.
Mhm. Great.
So thank you, Jenny.
Thank you. Great.
Mardell, you had a comment?
So I have two different questions.
Mhm.
Occurred to me. Does an HSP and or an empathic person always feel like they need to have control, or I can fix this person, or it's got to be. I just know a lady that I see that all the time, and I'm thinking that might be the category she's in. That it's got to be her way, and she can fix everybody's problem, and ignores her own. But I just think there's a control issue going. So is that a trait of,
And can I just say that's right on the crux of what I'm talking about on the empath side, which is that I don't need to control, but it shows up as someone, like, people can feel you're poised to help.
Right.
Yeah,
You see things and offer, and even if you're holding back the offering, people find your energy hard in the
yeah.
wrong spots. That's the opposite side.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, that
And
was, yeah, that was
another word for that would be invasive.
invasive. Huh? Yeah.
People feel the energy as invasive.
Mhm.
And I'm not sure I like the word always,
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
but people who have high sense perception often feel, may often feel a need to control their environment. It's like me with a napkin. It's like, I gotta find a better, softer, maybe I can find a cloth, napkin that doesn't make any sound when you touch it. You know, so there's this need, and a part of it's because it's so uncomfortable. It can be
Mm.
so physically stimulating that it's uncomfortable.
Mhm.
There's a lot of reasons why people have this need to control and manage other people and don't want to deal with their things. So I can't say always, but empaths, because they're a sponge and they often match energies until they learn how to put up the screen and manage that energy. I mean, it's a beautiful gift being an empath. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of benefits to being an empath.
Mhm.
And there are different types of empaths. And a mature empath knows how to manage that ability. They have investigated, they understand where they are standing with that ability to take in information so that it doesn't just go straight in, but they can manage. You can manage what comes in and what stays out very easily. But if you don't know how, you don't know how. And until you learn it, it impacts you hugely. If you will notice, a lot of psychics, if you've ever looked in the world, in the psychic realms, people that, actual psychics, you will find a lot of very heavy, overweight people. That is a way to control what's coming at them. It's a defense,
Mm.
and it lands in the body. You know, there's padding there, folks. It keeps it out. That's not true of everybody. I don't like to make generalizations, but you can find a pretty consistent pattern with that.
Interesting. Yeah. And I do have a second question. What is the difference between that and what's called chronic PTSD? Are there similar traits here?
Well, I don't think of chronic PTSD as a trait as much as the result of trauma. Something you experience as a result of trauma. HSP is a trait, and not everybody has it. You just get a lot more information. And some people, again, it can be very positive. Chronic PTSD isn't something that most people experience as positive, or as giving them the ability to be creative, or it's its own. We talked about trauma here before. Remember, we had Elizabeth Shoup and Celeste Mendelsohn talk about trauma here, big trauma, big T trauma, little t trauma. We all have trauma, by the way. We've all experienced some sort of trauma. And how you deal with that. There may be some crossover, because HSPs, unless they know they're an HSP and are raised in a supportive environment, they can wind up experiencing trauma, severe trauma.
Thank you.
And it shows up, oftentimes they wind up with PTSD or other forms of trauma that come out.
Because
And I would,
yeah.
Mhm.
Thank you. It's awesome.
You're welcome. So folks, I know we're at time, but I'll take one more question if anybody has anything or has a comment they'd like to share. Was this useful tonight? Let me see if this is, Allison, you're waving your hand. Do you have a comment?
Yeah, a comment or a request, maybe even that
Mhm.
just the increased curiosity and your statement that it's easy to learn to manage what you take in and not, and maybe that would be something that other people would enjoy having some guidance
Okay.
on and follow-up times together as well, because that's something I know that I could benefit from.
So let me say it's easy to learn how to manage it. And it takes practice.
Exactly, like everything, right?
Right.
But just having those tools, and I have a feeling that there's, I mean, I know that there's a lot that I'm already doing, and that but just I think that's good conversation to have and to continue to be aware of, and to hear from your perspective, from others' perspectives, as the conversation would go around that, and just see what comes. I think with any of those things, like each time you're having those conversations, you take away something new.
And maybe we will integrate that with something on intuition. I'll be doing a workshop on intuition later this year. Well, maybe not that late. We are in March. But a part of that is learning how to put up what I call that screen so that the energy does not come in and glom onto, if you will, or attach. And that is a very real thing, folks. I've seen it over and over and over again, and I cannot tell you how much random energy impacts us. So we'll talk more about that. But thank you for the idea, Allison. So yes, we'll do more with that. Okay, folks, have a great evening. It was wonderful to see all of you. Thank you for being here. Love you all very much. You're just part of my community, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Sammy. Thanks, everybody.
Fabulous. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.